I thought I knew my wife until I found $32,000 in secret credit cards hidden in her desk. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was discovering what she'd been buying with my money while telling me I wasn't good enough for her. Some betrayals cut deeper than others. My name is Finn Callahan. I'm 44 years old, and I've been running Sullivan & Sons Plumbing for the past 8 years. Yeah, I know the irony. It's called Sullivan & Sons, but my last name's Callahan. Bought the business from old Pat Sullivan when he retired. Kept the name because it had a good reputation in town. That's how I think. Build on what works. Don't fix what ain't broken. Nicole never understood that philosophy. We met at a home improvement expo 6 years ago. I was manning a booth, demonstrating toilet repairs to suburban homeowners who looked like they'd never held a wrench. Nicole was there with her 15-year-old son, Trevor, trying to learn about water heater maintenance after her ex-husband, Derek, had left her with a house falling apart and bills stacking up. She caught my eye immediately, not just because she was beautiful, but because she was actually taking notes. Most people just want free pens and keychains. Nicole was different. She asked smart questions, wrote down everything I said, and when I offered to check out her water heater for free, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "What's the catch?" "No catch," I told her. "Just trying to help out a neighbor." She studied my face like she was reading fine print. "Nobody does anything for free these days, Finn." "Well, I do." That was the beginning. I spent the next 3 months fixing everything in her house that Derek had neglected. Leaky faucets, clogged drains, a bathroom door that wouldn't close properly. Trevor watched me work sometimes, handing me tools and asking questions about the trade. The kid was sharp, reminded me of myself at that age. Nicole and I got married 2 years later, and a year after that, our daughter Emma came along. For a while, everything felt solid. I was building my business, Trevor was doing well in school, and Emma was the light of all our lives. We bought a bigger house in a better neighborhood, one with a 2-car garage where I could park my work truck. But somewhere along the way, Nicole started changing. The way she'd introduce me at neighborhood barbecues as just a plumber, like those 2 words explained everything anyone needed to know about me. How she'd get that pinched look around her mouth when Emma would proudly tell people her daddy fixed pipes. "Daddy's a businessman," Nicole would correct her, but it always sounded forced. The first real fight happened about a year ago. I've been working an emergency call, basement flooding, guests coming for Thanksgiving. I got home around 10 p.m., exhausted and muddy, to find Nicole pacing the living room with her arms crossed. "Where have you been?" Nicole asked like I was some teenager breaking curfew. "Working. Mrs. Henderson's basement flooded, and..." "It's always something," Nicole interrupted. "Always some emergency that's more important than your own family." I looked around our warm house, the house my emergency calls had helped pay for. "I'm working for my family," I said. "No, Finn. You're working because it's easier than being here." That fight opened something between us that I couldn't seem to fix, no matter what tools I used. Nicole started treating me like I was some kind of burden she had to carry instead of the man she'd chosen to marry. The little comments got sharper, more frequent. She'd roll her eyes when I'd tell Emma about fixing Mrs. Patterson's garbage disposal, or when Trevor asked me about joining the plumber's apprentice program at the community college. "Don't fill his head with that nonsense," Nicole said one evening while I was helping Trevor with his math homework at the kitchen table. "He's smart enough for college, real college. What's wrong with learning a trade?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Emma was coloring nearby, and I didn't want her hearing us argue again. "Nothing, if that's all you're capable of," Nicole replied, not even looking up from her phone. "But Trevor has options." Trevor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The kid was caught in the middle, and I hated that Nicole was putting him there. "There's good money in plumbing, Trev," I said. "Always will be. People always need water, and they always need someone who knows how to make it work right. People also need doctors and lawyers and engineers," Nicole shot back. "People who don't come home covered in other people's waste." That stung. I stood up slowly, closed Trevor's textbook, and looked at my wife. "You didn't seem to mind what I did when your pipes were busted and Derek wasn't around to fix them." Nicole's face went red. "That was different." "Ow, I didn't know you then. I didn't know what I was signing up for." Emma looked up from her coloring book, crayon frozen in her small hand. "Daddy, why is Mommy mad at you?" I knelt down beside her chair, smoothed her dark hair. "Mommy's not mad, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just see things differently." But Nicole was mad. She was mad at me for being exactly what I'd always been, what she'd fallen in love with in the first place. Or maybe she'd never really fallen in love with me at all. Maybe she'd just fallen in love with the idea of being rescued, and now that she was safe and secure, she wanted something else. Someone else. The distance between us grew wider over the next few months. She started going out more often, girls' nights, work events, book club meetings that seemed to happen 3 times a week. I'd put him to bed and sit at the kitchen table with Trevor, helping him with homework, or just talking about his day. The kid was a good student, but he was also dealing with his own struggles. His father, Derek, had been calling more often, making promises about visits that never happened and filling Trevor's head with stories about all the things they'd do together next time. He says he's got a new job in Denver. Trevor told me one night while I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge. Says I could come live with him for a while, see what it's like out there. I paused, screwdriver in hand. What do you think about that? Trevor shrugged, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. I don't know. He's my dad, you know. But he said stuff like this before. He has, I agreed. And you've got school here, friends. Emma would miss you something fierce. Mom says I should keep my options open. Of course she did. Nicole had been encouraging Trevor to reconnect with Derek, probably hoping it would solve her problem of having a stepson who actually liked his blue-collar stepfather. But I knew Derek Banks. I'd heard enough stories from Nicole about his empty promises and disappearing acts. The man was a dreamer, not a doer, and Trevor deserved better than that. Nicole's mother, Beverly, showed up unannounced on a Thursday evening, which should have been my first warning that trouble was coming. The woman had a talent for appearing whenever things were already tense, like she could smell dysfunction from 3 states away. She swept into our house with her usual air of superiority, kissing Nicole on both cheeks like they were European royalty instead of middle-class Americans from Ohio. "Finn," she said, giving me the kind of handshake you'd give a stranger at a funeral. "Still getting your hands dirty for a living, I see." I wiped my palms on my jeans. Clean palms since I'd just gotten home and washed up, but Beverly always made me feel like I was covered in grime. "Evening, Beverly. How was the drive from Cleveland?" "Long," she said, settling into our good chair like she owned it. "But I wanted to see my granddaughter. Emma, come give Grammy a hug." Emma ran over, all smiles and excitement. At 9 years old, she didn't pick up on the undercurrents yet, didn't notice how her grandmother's eyes went cold whenever they landed on me. Beverly had never approved of Nicole marrying a plumber, and she made sure I knew it every chance she got. "Nicole tells me business has been slow," Beverly said while we ate dinner. It wasn't true. Business had been steady, but Nicole had been complaining about money lately, mostly because she wanted to renovate the kitchen, and I'd said we needed to wait until next year. "Business is fine," I said, cutting Emma's chicken into smaller pieces. "We're doing well. Well enough to give my daughter the life she deserves." The question hung in the air like smoke. Trevor looked uncomfortable, picking at his mashed potatoes. Nicole stared at her plate, not defending me, not correcting her mother's assumptions, just sitting there and letting Beverly take shots at the man who'd stepped up when Derek left them high and dry. "I think Nicole can speak for herself about the life she has," I said, keeping my voice steady. Beverly's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Can she? Because from what I hear, she's been doing nothing but speaking for herself, and you've been too stubborn to listen." "Mom," Nicole said finally, but it was barely a whisper. "What?" "It's true. Look at this house, Nicole. Look at what you settled for. Your father and I didn't work 2 jobs to put you through college, so you could end up married to a man who can't even provide basic security. That did it." I set down my fork and looked Beverly straight in the eye. "This house is paid for," I said. "My daughter has everything she needs. Trevor's college fund is fully funded. If that's not security, I don't know what is." "Material things." Beverly waved her hand, dismissively. "What about social status? What about respect in the community? What about giving Nicole the chance to be something more than a plumber's wife? There's nothing wrong with being a plumber's wife if the plumber treats his wife right." Beverly smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. Treating someone right means recognizing when you're holding them back. Derek Banks showed up on a Saturday morning while I was teaching Emma how to change the oil in my truck. She was underneath with me, holding a flashlight and asking a million questions about engines and maintenance when I heard his voice calling from the driveway. "Trevor, get out here, son. Your old man's back in town." I slid out from under the truck, wiping my hands on a rag, and there he was. Derek Banks, looking exactly like the kind of guy who'd abandoned his family. Expensive clothes that didn't quite hide the fact that he was soft around the middle, flashy watch that was probably fake, and that smile that had fooled Nicole once upon a time. "Finn Callahan," Derek said, walking over with his hand extended like we were old friends. "Good to see you, man. Taking care of my boy, I hear." I shook his hand, squeezed a little harder than necessary. "Derek, wasn't expecting you." "Surprise visits are the best kind," he said, but his eyes were already scanning the house, the garage, taking inventory of what I'd built. "Nice setup you got here. Trevor's been telling me all about it." Trevor came out of the house then, moving slow, like he wasn't sure whether he was happy or worried to see his father. The kid had grown 3 inches since Derek's last visit 2 years ago, filled out in the shoulders, started looking more like a man than a boy. "Dad," Trevor said, and I heard the uncertainty in his voice. "Look at you." Derek pulled Trevor into a hug that lasted a beat too long, like he was performing for an audience. "You're huge, man. What are you now, 6'2"? 6'1", Trevor said. "Close enough. You playing any sports? Football? Basketball? I bet you're killing it with the girls." I watched Trevor's face, saw how he wanted his father's approval, but didn't know how to respond to questions about a life Derek had never bothered to be part of. Emma came out from under the truck, grease smudged on her cheek, and Derek's attention shifted to her. "And who's this little grease monkey?" Derek asked. "That's Emma," Trevor said. "Finn's daughter." "Our daughter," I corrected quietly, but Derek heard me. Right. Family man now, huh, Finn? That's good. Kids need stability." He ruffled Emma's hair, and she stepped closer to me instinctively. "So, Trevor, pack a bag. We're going to spend the day together. Maybe the whole weekend. I've got so much to show you." Trevor looked at me, then at Derek. "I've got homework." "Homework can wait," Derek interrupted. "When's the next time your dad's going to be in town? Come on, live a little." I wanted to step in, wanted to remind Derek that showing up unannounced didn't give him the right to disrupt Trevor's life. But Trevor was 15, old enough to make his own choices, and I wasn't his biological father. I was just a man who'd been there every day for the past 4 years, helping with homework and teaching him how to change a tire, and listening to his problems when Derek was nowhere to be found. "Go ahead, Trev," I said, "but be back by Sunday night. You got school Monday." Derek's smile got wider. "Don't worry, Finn. I'll take good care of him." I found out about Nicole's credit card debt by accident. I was looking for the warranty information on our washing machine when I opened the wrong drawer in her desk and saw the stack of statements. At first, I thought maybe she'd been paying them off each month like we'd always done. Then I saw the balances. $32,000 spread across 6 different cards. Some I'd never even heard of, others I didn't know she had. The minimum payments alone were more than our monthly grocery budget, and the interest rates made my head spin. I sat there staring at the numbers, trying to figure out how this had happened without me knowing. The purchases were all over the map. Clothing, jewelry, spa treatments, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Hundreds of dollars at a time, sometimes multiple times per week. While I was working 60-hour weeks to keep our business growing, Nicole had been spending money we didn't have on a lifestyle I couldn't afford. I confronted her that evening after Emma was in bed, and Trevor was upstairs doing homework. I spread the statements on the kitchen table like evidence in a courtroom. "Want to explain these?" I asked. Nicole looked at the papers, then at me, and I saw something flicker across her face. Not shame, not regret, defiance. "I needed things," she said. "Emma needed things. The house needed things. Emma needed $300 shoes. Those were for me. I work hard, Finn. I deserve to have nice things sometimes." I picked up one of the statements, pointed to a charge for $800 at some boutique I'd never heard of. "This was last Tuesday. You told me you were at book club." I was. "Afterward, I went shopping. With money we don't have." Nicole crossed her arms. "We have money. Your business is doing fine. My business pays for this house, Trevor's college fund, Emma's school clothes, groceries, utilities, insurance. It doesn't pay for you to pretend you're married to someone making twice what I make. Maybe if you had more ambition, I wouldn't have to pretend." That stopped me cold. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized I was seeing someone I didn't recognize. The woman who'd fallen in love with a hard-working plumber had been replaced by someone who resented him for not being something else entirely. "How long has this been going on?" I asked. "A while. How long, Nicole? 2 years. Maybe 3. 3 years. 3 years of lies. 3 years of spending money behind my back. 3 years of building a debt that could destroy everything I'd worked for. I felt something shift inside me, something that had been holding us together, finally giving way. We need to cut up these cards, I said. All of them. Tonight. You can't tell me what to do with my money. It's not your money. It's our money, and our debt, and our problem to solve. Nicole stood up, grabbed the statements from the table. I'm not some child you can ground, Finn. I'm your wife. Then act like it. Derek kept his promise about spending the weekend with Trevor, but what he delivered wasn't what any of us expected. He picked Trevor up Saturday morning in a rented Mustang convertible, bright red, loud exhaust, the kind of car designed to get attention rather than get anywhere useful. Check this out, son, Derek said, revving the engine in our driveway. Nothing but the best for my boy. Trevor looked impressed, despite himself. 15-year-old boys are hardwired to appreciate flashy cars, and Derek knew exactly which buttons to push. They roared off in a cloud of exhaust and burnt rubber, leaving me standing in the driveway feeling like I'd just been shown up by a man who couldn't even remember his son's birthday most years. They didn't come back Saturday night, or Sunday morning. By Sunday afternoon, I was ready to call the police, but Nicole convinced me to wait. Derek's his father, she said. He has rights. Trevor finally walked through our front door Sunday night around 10, looking like he'd been through a blender. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair was messy, and his eyes had that particular glassy look that comes from staying up too late and eating nothing but junk food. Where have you been? I asked. Vegas, Trevor said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Vegas? You're 15 years old. Dad wanted to show me the city. We stayed at the Bellagio. It was incredible. I looked at Nicole, who was standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed. She didn't look surprised, which told me she'd known about this little adventure and hadn't bothered to mention it to me. Trevor, you have school tomorrow, I said. I know. Dad drove all night to get me back. And where is your father now? Trevor shrugged. He dropped me off and left. Said he had to catch a flight back to Denver. Of course he did. Derek had swooped in, played the fun parent for 48 hours, and disappeared again, leaving me to deal with the aftermath. Trevor spent the next week walking around like he'd seen heaven and couldn't understand why the rest of us were content living on Earth. Dad says I should come live with him, Trevor mentioned Wednesday night while I was helping him catch up on the homework he'd missed. Oh yeah? And what do you think about that? I don't know. Denver's pretty cool. Dad's got this amazing apartment, and there's skiing and mountain biking and all kinds of stuff to do. What about school? Your friends here? Trevor shrugged. Dad says I can finish high school there. Says the schools are better anyway. I set down my pencil, looked at this kid I'd been raising for 4 years. Trevor, your dad's a good man, but he's not the most reliable guy in the world. You know that, right? He's changed, Trevor said defensively. He's got a good job now, a nice place to live. He's got his act together. Maybe he does. But even if that's true, you've got a life here. You've got friends, activities, people who care about you. Like who? The question hit me harder than it should have. Trevor had some friends at school, but he wasn't Mr. Popular. He was a quiet kid, thoughtful, the kind of teenager who preferred reading to partying. Nicole had never been particularly warm with him, and her mother Beverly treated him like he was taking up space that belonged to someone else. Like me, I said finally, I care about you, Trev. I know I'm not your biological father, but you're important to me. You matter. Trevor looked at me for a long moment. But you're not my real dad. No, I admitted. I'm not. But I'm the one who's been here. Nicole didn't come home until almost midnight. I was sitting at the kitchen table, going through the credit card statements again, trying to figure out how we were going to dig ourselves out of this hole she created. When she walked in, I smelled wine on her breath and saw that defiant look in her eyes that had become all too familiar. We need to talk about this debt, I said without looking up. I don't want to talk about it tonight, Finn. When do you want to talk about it? When the bank forecloses on our house. Nicole dropped her purse on the counter with a loud thud. Don't be so dramatic. Dramatic? I stood up, holding one of the statements. Nicole, we're talking about $32,000. That's more than I made my first 3 years running this business. Maybe that's the problem, she said, kicking off her heels. Maybe you're not making enough. Or maybe you're spending too much. We stared at each other across the kitchen, and I saw something in her face that made my blood run cold. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't embarrassed. She was angry at me for discovering her secret. I regret every day with you, Nicole said, her voice low and bitter. Every single day of this small, pathetic life you've trapped me in. The words hit me like a physical blow. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my wedding ring, and set on the kitchen counter between us. Then let this be the last one, I said. Nicole's eyes widened. For the first time in months, she looked genuinely surprised. Finn, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Pack your things, Nicole. I want you out of my house by the end of the week. You can't kick me out. I'm your wife. Not anymore. I went upstairs to check on Emma, who was sleeping peacefully in her bed, completely unaware that her world was about to change. Trevor's room was empty. He was still at Derek's place, probably being filled with more stories about the exciting life waiting for him in Denver. I sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her sleep, and made a promise to myself. Whatever happened with Nicole, whatever happened with Trevor, I wouldn't let this destroy my daughter. She deserved better than growing up in a house full of resentment and lies. The next morning, Nicole was gone. No note, no explanation, just an empty closet and a bathroom counter cleared of all her things. I found Emma sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the spot where her mother usually sat with her morning coffee. Where's Mommy? Emma asked. I sat down beside her, took her small hand in mine. Mommy had to go away for a while. Sweetheart, is she coming back? I looked into my daughter's trusting eyes and realized I didn't know how to answer that question. I don't know, Emma, but you know what I do know? What? That I love you more than anything in this world, and no matter what happens, that's never going to change. Emma nodded solemnly, then climbed into my lap for a hug that lasted longer than usual. A week after Nicole left, Vanessa Carter called me. I almost didn't pick up. Nicole's friends have been calling all week, some to check on me, others to tell me what a terrible husband I was for abandoning my wife. But something made me answer this time. Finn, it's Vanessa, she said, her voice soft and hesitant. I know this is probably the last thing you want to deal with right now, but I need to tell you something. Vanessa Carter had been Nicole's best friend since college. She was one of the few people in Nicole's circle who'd ever treated me with genuine respect, who didn't look at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. What is it, Vanessa? It's about Nicole, about what she's been doing. Vanessa paused, and I could hear her take a deep breath. She's been seeing someone, Finn, for months. I sat down heavily in my chair. Part of me had suspected this, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a punch to the gut. Ooh, his name is Brad Summers. He's a lawyer at her firm, drives a BMW, wears expensive suits, everything Nicole always said she wanted. Of course, everything I wasn't. How long? I asked. Since Christmas, maybe earlier. She's been lying to everyone, Finn. All those book club meetings, girls' nights out, half of them never happened. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. Because you deserve better than what she gave you. Because you're a good man, and good men shouldn't be made to feel like they're not enough when the problem was never with them in the first place. Her words hit something deep inside me, something that had been twisted up in knots for months. It wasn't my fault. The debt, the lies, the constant criticism, none of it was because I wasn't good enough. It was because Nicole had chosen someone else. There's something else, Vanessa said. I've been watching how she's treated you, how she talks about you when you're not around. It's not right, Finn. A wife should support her husband, not tear him down every chance she gets. I appreciate you calling, Vanessa. I hope you find someone who sees your worth, she said quietly. Someone who appreciates what you have to offer instead of resenting you for it. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet kitchen, thinking about Vanessa's words. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt like a man who'd been married to the wrong woman, who'd given his best to someone who couldn't see it. Emma came downstairs then, her hair messy from sleep, and climbed in my lap without a word. Are you sad, Daddy? She asked. A little, I said honestly, but I'm also relieved. What's relieved mean? It means sometimes when something bad ends, you feel better even though you're sad. Emma nodded like this made perfect sense to her 9-year-old mind. Like when I had to get my tooth pulled. Exactly like that. The divorce papers came 3 weeks later. Nicole wanted half of everything. The house, the business, even Emma's college fund. Her lawyer was as slick as she was greedy, but I had something they didn't expect. Documentation of every fraudulent charge, every secret credit card, Every lie she told about where the money went. Your client accumulated $32,000 in debt without my client's knowledge or consent, my lawyer told them during the first settlement meeting. She used marital assets to finance an extramarital affair. I'd say we have grounds for a very different kind of settlement. Nicole's face went white when I walked into that conference room. She'd probably expected me to roll over, to let her take what she wanted out of guilt or exhaustion. Instead, I came prepared for war. "Finn, please," she said when we broke for lunch. "Don't do this. Think about Emma." "I'm thinking about Emma," I said. "I'm thinking about how she deserves a father who doesn't let people walk all over him, who stands up for what's right." Trevor had made his choice too. Derek's promises about Denver had evaporated when his big job turned out to be another get-rich-quick scheme that fell apart within a month. The kid came back from Colorado with his tail between his legs, asking if he could move back home. "Of course you can," I told him, "but we need to get some things straight. I'm not your biological father, but this is your home as long as you want it to be." Trevor nodded, his eyes serious. "I know you're not my real dad, but you're the one who's been here. That counts for something." Emma adapted better than I expected. Kids are resilient that way. She missed her mother, but she didn't miss the constant tension, the fights, the walking on eggshells. Our house felt peaceful for the first time in years. "Daddy, is Vanessa going to be my new mommy?" Emma asked one evening while we were making dinner together. Vanessa had been spending more time at the house, helping with Emma, bringing groceries, just being present in ways Nicole never had. It wasn't romantic, not yet, but there was something growing between us, something based on respect and genuine care. "I don't know, sweetheart. Would you like that?" Emma considered this seriously. "I think so. She's nice to me. And she's nice to you too." Out of the mouths of babes. The settlement was finalized 6 months later. Nicole got less than she wanted, but more than she deserved. The important thing was that Emma stayed with me, the house stayed mine, and the business remained intact. Nicole moved in with Brad Summers, her lawyer boyfriend, and started posting pictures on social media of their expensive vacations and fancy restaurant dinners. I didn't feel jealous watching her new life unfold. I felt relieved that someone else was paying for her champagne taste while I focused on building something real with people who actually valued what I had to offer. Vanessa was one of those people. She understood that love wasn't about what a man could buy you, but about how he treated you when nobody was watching. How he showed up every day, how he kept his word, how he put his family's needs ahead of his own comfort. "You know what I love about you?" she said one evening while we sat on the porch, watching Emma and Trevor play catch in the yard. "My devastating good looks." She laughed. "Your hands. They're working hands. Honest hands. They build things instead of just taking them." 2 years later, Vanessa Carter became Vanessa Callahan in a small ceremony in our backyard. Emma was the flower girl. Trevor walked Vanessa down the aisle, and my brother gave a toast that made everyone cry happy tears. "To second chances," he said, raising his glass. "And to men who know the difference between settling and choosing wisely." The business had not only survived but thrived. Word gets around in small towns, and people respect a man who stands up for himself without being cruel about it. My customer base grew. I hired 2 more employees, and we expanded into emergency services that kept the phone ringing around the clock. Trevor graduated high school with honors and decided to attend the local community college while working part-time for me. He discovered he had a natural talent for plumbing, and more importantly, he liked the work. "It's honest work," he said, echoing something I told him years ago. "There's satisfaction in fixing something that's broken." Derek still called occasionally, full of new schemes and grand plans, but Trevor had learned to see through the shiny veneer to the hollow promises underneath. Blood might be thicker than water, but presence is thicker than blood. Emma was 11 now, confident and happy in ways she'd never been when Nicole was around. She helped me in the shop sometimes, learning to organize tools and inventory, showing the same practical intelligence that had made me fall in love with her mother once upon a time. "Daddy, do you ever miss Mommy?" she asked one Saturday while we were working on a sink installation together. I considered the question carefully. "I miss who I thought she was," I said finally, "but I don't miss who she actually turned out to be." "That makes sense," Emma said, like she was 40 instead of 11. Vanessa had brought her own strength to our family. She didn't try to replace Nicole or compete with her memory. She just showed up every day, steady and reliable, proving through actions rather than words that she was in it for the long haul. You know what the difference is between you and Nicole? I asked her one night, as we cleaned up after dinner. What? You see who I am instead of who you wish I could be. She smiled, kissed my cheek. That's because who you are is enough, Finn. More than enough. The house Nicole had complained about for years became a home again. The business she'd resented became something I was proud to pass down to my children. The life she called small became something worth celebrating every single day. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a man is losing the wrong woman so he can find the right one. Sometimes the foundation has to break completely before you can build something that will last.